All right, we've been talking about the weekly planning rhythm kind of across Greenhouse coaching, like on the podcast, but also on email and on social media, even within our community. And really, this idea of like, how do you get organized? How do you stay focused on what matters most? And I mean, I think we all struggle with the weight every day of our to-do lists and of distractions and of our goals. And so I thought it would be helpful to hear somebody kind of working on this themselves and kind of talking through it together instead of just the format of teaching a framework. And so I invited Tina to the show to come on this episode. Tina is one of the people in the Greenhouse community, and I just thought we had a good conversation already sparking about this. You have a lot of good thoughts and things you've been working on. So welcome to Career Sweetspot, Tina. And do you want to just share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for the welcome. I'm really excited to be here. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation around planning. I found Greenhouse when I lost my job in the spring and looking for some solutions and how to either retool, reinvent. To be honest, I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself because I was a bit of a Swiss Army knife. And so I was really attracted to the Greenhouse community because, wow, guess what? There's a lot of them there.
We are a lot of Swiss Army knives.
Oh, I love it. And even the optionality of the membership model attracted to me. So was really attractive to me. So I have been in the process now of figuring out where do I belong, in the marketplace, or should I be doing my own business? And that is kind of the nature of some of our questions, the or,
yes.
and.
Yes.
So I'm out here in Austin, Texas, and I'm just really excited about this conversation. Let's see what we can come up with together and what we extract. And
well, and we can trade. I'll come visit you for South by Southwest or something.
Yes.
Always been jealous when I meet people in Austin. I'm like, gosh, part of me wishes I lived there. I just love music and all that. But you, the first time.
I'm a musician.
You're a musician too?
I am. I'm a musician too, and I've lived in 3 music cities. I was in Memphis before this and Nashville before that.
No way. What do you sing, play an instrument? What do you do?
Back in the day, I sang, played a little acoustic guitar, bass on occasion.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, but the first time we interacted, I was like, wait, Austin, Texas, you have some kind of Midwest accent going on. And being from Michigan myself, I could detect it. And I was afraid to go there and make a quick judgment, but you were like, yeah, I got a little Minnesota.
Minnesota, yes. We sound like, everybody in Grumpy Old Man in Fargo, and it's a dead giveaway. And I think I've lived in the South actually longer than I've lived in the North now.
Yeah.
But everybody can pick it up. I mean, it's still there. It's still at home in my heart.
Oh yeah. I mean, I never thought growing up that we had accents in Michigan until I moved more to the South. And then it took a few years, and then I realized I'm talking to family and they're saying like, you want to go camping? Yeah. And I'm like, wait, what'd you say? So it's funny. I kind of like that about moving to different places. All right. So Tina, you were mentioning that you're a Swiss Army knife. I think this is a fascinating topic because you're right. At Greenhouse, we often, I think, just come across or work with people who are generalists or creatives, entrepreneurs. It's kind of like you don't fit a box on the org chart. And one of the challenges can be that you're interested in a lot of things. So then how do you focus on a few things? That for me was also the struggle and kind of where the weekly planning rhythm kind of came to life, is trying to pull from different sources. Like, all right, what's a simple, repeatable framework that actually works? Isn't just like, oh, that sounds good, but it actually works. And it's not so overwhelming that you just kind of like ignore it. So we've talked about this a bit and I want to get into it, but first tell me a bit about, like, when it comes to productivity or setting priorities and like organizing your work and life, what have you tried before? What has worked? What has not worked? Let's start there.
Oh, my mercy. Okay. So I think back, several years in my career, because I will say this, I had an awareness that was kind of game changing when it came to productivity. And the awareness was that I am neurodiverse, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, people might call it ADD. My focus is all over the place. Sometimes it's super hyper focused, sometimes it's not focused. And I think before I had that awareness, the fact that I felt I was in a consistent pattern of failure with time management systems was really troublesome for me, and contributed even to just a lack of self-efficacy and confidence, because there are a lot of really great systems out there. And a lot of people will say they are scientifically proven. And I keep thinking, well, for which demographic?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I kind of discovered, hey, listen, I interact with my world in a very unique way, that's when I started having a different relationship with planning and time management.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped kind of attempting to fit my, I would say my octagon in a,
Not a
in a
square.
square
Yeah.
hole, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then started to understand that because my mind maybe is not typical, and I don't manage my energy in a way that what I have been told is typical in the business world, I'll just put it that way, that freed me up a lot.
Mm.
And what it freed me up to do is get really creative, right? So I've tried lots of things, Steve. And here's the thing. Lots of things work and lots of things don't work. And what I've also learned is something that can work in one season doesn't work in another season.
Yeah.
So this is probably the most unclear answer you're going to get, but it's actually the most clear answer for me, is the freedom to know that my systems are going to have to change based on my season in life, what I'm actually doing. Like, that is going to be normal.
Yeah.
And so when one system stops working, that's not failure. It's time to reinvent the new one.
I think that's
Does that make
actually a
sense?
great insight. Yeah. Especially realizing, we talked about your personality type. I think you were sharing your Myers-Briggs, right?
Yeah,
You know,
I'm an ENFP.
ENFP. And for people not familiar, that is definitely a more creative type, a more open-ended type, more flexible and kind of variety. Like, not surprising that kind of one size fits all and forever isn't actually, it isn't going to work for you. It's almost ironic that the system you need is an anti-system.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing you mentioned before we hopped on was the fact that, okay, even if you kind of have one of those systems or you have a plan, you can easily kind of um, sidetrack your own plan.
Oh, my mercy. Okay, so yeah, I know what you're talking about,
Uh-huh.
because I actually had a membership with an organization for a bit for accountability coaching. And so one thing I do know about myself is an external stimulus does help, right? Like, so if I meet with a person, that's one success factor for me. Well, in that meeting, what we were doing, we were setting, hey, these are the top 3 things that you're going to do, and now let's time block for all the steps that you need to do. So I'm sitting down and I'm time blocking the whole week, and I'm going to get these 3 big things done and all
Uh-huh.
the steps that are, necessary to get that done. And then I go to meet with my coach the next week, and I have got nothing done. It's like, how could you possibly get nothing done? You had it all planned out. Well, I mean, I offend my own schedule all the time. I feel like I'm somewhat at the mercy of if I feel
Uh-huh.
like doing
Yeah.
it. So over that whole system didn't work. And so when I was working with the coach, I think she was one of these very linear people, because she's, well, let's try it again next week.
No, no, you don't
Okay,
understand. That's gonna make
sure,
it
we can
worse.
try. Yeah, let me lose 2 weeks, over this. Yeah. So yeah, I just, if I do too much time blocking, and it's only for
Yeah.
me, here's the thing, Steve, for me, I time block for myself, meaning I'm the only person that I'm accountable to at that time block. More often than not, I offend that
Yeah. Yeah.
schedule.
You don't obey your own rules because it is based more on how you're feeling in the moment. And of course, I I think you're
Yeah.
actually calling out two great things here, which is there are personality types that are more step by step works for them because they actually follow the steps. They're more linear, they're more attuned to rules and kind of following consistent, repeatable behaviors. There's feelers, and I mean, there are other categories, but you're calling out that part of it where, hey, if I don't feel like it right now, or I feel like something else, then I'm probably not going to obey that time block.
There's a high likelihood that that might happen.
Your face right there.
I'd like to say I'm mature enough and self-disciplined enough, but my history says no,
Yeah.
that's not the case.
Yeah.
That is not a route that I am successful with.
Yeah. I experience the same thing, so I can relate to that. It's pretty often that I'll say, well, that was scheduled and we worked out all the plans for that, but like, nah, I'm not really in the mood for that right now. It's bad.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
I think that's cool. You're recognizing a reality instead of trying to fight uphill forever. It's almost like how could you adjust the system to work with that?
Well, I would say, like, looking at the planning guide that you guys have set up, let me tell you what I do like about it. Because you guys get us folks who need a lot of spaciousness and flexibility, because we're looking at a planning system where it's like, hey, what is this one main thing that we need to get done? One, not 7.
Yeah.
One main thing. And then when I look at this idea of, hey, there's a deep work block, right? What I do know about myself is I get my best work done when I can hyper focus.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about a good block of time to do something really important, I do need a good block of uninterrupted time. Now, because I'm a little bit subject to how I feel and how inspired I am to some degree, I have to make that block very, very spacious, because it can take time for me to warm up into actually executing.
Yeah.
Right? I might piddle around for an hour before I actually feel like maybe I have enough energetic momentum to execute on the thing. So I've stopped judging that as bad. I've stopped judging that as ineffective. I'm just recognizing that's my process. So if I know something takes maybe an hour, I'll probably schedule 2 hours, because I know that I'm not just going to be able to turn it on necessarily. I might, but I might not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's another reason to think about all the aspects of the environment during that block. So you add an extra hour, you have a certain, for me, it tends to be like more in the morning with fresh brewed coffee, maybe even at a coffee shop or somewhere with lots of like noise and stimuli. I mean, for some people that'd be terrible, but for me, I know that all those environmental elements help me to get the hyper focus.
Yes. And I think about whatever the task is it a heavy lift task? Is it something that's going to require a lot of concentration, or is it just something that needs to get done? Right.
Yeah.
Because those require different resources inside of me. So when I go to block the time, if it's something that's really heavy lifting, then I do need to do it at a particular time in the day when that resource is available to me. I know this about myself. It's not necessarily the morning. It's kind of mid-afternoon, because I need to get some momentum rolling.
Yeah.
Right? Like get some things happening. And then, man, when I hit that afternoon, I can really I can give it all I got. But if it's something that just needs to get done, I mean, gosh, I can do that while I'm watching TV at 8:00 at night. Then I might plan it for 8:00 at night while I'm watching TV. So recognizing, what the lift is there, is important when I decide when the time block is going to be as well.
That's cool. So for the afternoon ideal time, what's typically the best setting that works for you?
You realize what you're asking, right? You asked me to pick something.
Right. And
a best setting.
Yeah.
Well,
depends.
Kind of depends. Sometimes I like being in my office and I've got my structured setup. Sometimes I like to pull my laptop into the living room, be on the couch and, cast it to my TV.
Yeah.
Whatever I happen to feel.
Yeah. So yours is more of
really the truth.
being aware in that time and kind of adjusting to that. It's more about the awareness than the plan.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And another thing you called out, this was cool because I can relate to this one. Um, I don't think it ever clicked for me until you said it this way. One thing for a week versus seven things. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons that works well. But for your personality type, I think for mine too, there's something about trying to do maybe one big thing every day that I'm setting myself up to fail because of that consistency required every day. Not going to happen for me. But over the course
Yeah.
of a week, I can at least find one time to nail it once. And if I do that, and that's a success criteria, I can win every week, usually.
Yes. Yes. And even if I block it thinking it's the ideal time, it might not get done till Thursday night.
Right.
It's still that's okay,
You're
but it's one
planning
thing.
exactly, but
So
you're
I'm not
planning in that mitigation that like you're planning the grace in.
yes. I mean, the reality is, Steve, listen, we all get more than one thing done in a week, right? We
Well,
all get more than one thing done in a week. And I think when it comes to planning and goal setting, the thing that is probably the most important to us is our ability to manage our own energy and our own sense of confidence that we can get things done,
mhm.
right? So even though I know I'm going to get more than one thing done in a week, it's not like I sit around all day and I get this one thing done that I've scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. Um, I'm going to get more done. I'm going to have a list. I have a checklist. I like to cross things off the checklist, but that one thing to be able to say it is the most important thing. This is the thing that either is the important and urgent thing, the thing with the highest ROI, the thing that has the most dependencies on it. Picking that one thing, and at the end of the week, getting something really important done,
Yeah.
really needle moving done.
Yeah. I mean, what does that do for you, like, emotionally, mentally? I'm just curious how that affects you to get that thing done, to do that.
Oh, well, I mean, here's what happens then. When that one thing gets done, lots more gets done because it really truly is success breeds success. So when you get that one really important thing done, sometimes that thing you might have put off till week 2, you pull into this week because now you're kind of riding on that wave like, "Hey, there's a little bit more to this wave I can ride, so I'm gonna pull some things in." I know for me that's when I get wins, that's when I can start really building some momentum with
Yeah.
success, right? But if I get a bunch of like losses, which means I try and get several things done in a week, and I said I was going to do this on Monday and it didn't get done on Monday, it can be a little all or nothing. Well, whatever. But if I just have that one thing, if I get that done early in the week, it may build momentum for the rest of the week. If it gets done at the end of the week, it doesn't matter. I still got that
Uh-huh.
thing done. So I still feel like a person on track.
Yeah, it's similar for me where I, could do a bunch of small things all day, all week, and get a ton of have a ton of check the boxes and still feel, ah, gosh, because it was all kind of reactionary, urgent stuff versus even just one
Yes.
big thing and then the small stuff later, even if I don't get all the small stuff done, it's actually happened to me today. Then I actually get more of the small stuff done and I feel more accomplished.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I would identify with that. I would identify with that. Sometimes that little stuff that needs to get done, it's the busy stuff, right? It's the busy work. And sometimes it's the easy stuff because that one thing, maybe it's hard.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's the challenging thing. Maybe it's the uncomfortable thing. And so we can pitch around doing a lot of these teeny tiny things and accumulating a lot of, you know, tasks, I'll say, but we're avoiding the one thing.
Yeah.
And really the win is with that one thing. That's where that self-efficacy is built with that one thing, right?
Yeah.
That important thing.
Yeah. And there's something about, the weeks that I feel like, oh, well, there's five one things, and I don't just choose one of the five, then it's also a weighty feeling of, I did get one
Yes.
huge thing done, but there's four more. And so there's almost this weird mental game of
Yes.
just pick one, put everything else kind of on the list for later. Give yourself that freedom too.
I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I'm thinking about our conversation right now, and I'm thinking about all the things I've ever heard in personal development about goal setting and how really our way to success is exact opposite of everything I've ever learned. Like, you got to have a system. No, I need to not have too much of a system. You got to set, you got to set lots of steps. You got to map out all the steps. No, just give me one step, right?
Yeah,
It's
well,
kind of
it
interesting.
is. I mean, I just think the problem most of us are experiencing in this culture is overwhelm. And so a super
Oh, yeah.
complicated system that requires you to be perfect every day, it's designed for failure. It's like, well, we're all overwhelmed to begin with, and none of us are going to do it perfect. So now I'm just feeling. I think it discounts the feeling part, which we're so emotion driven. Like if I'm failing all the time and
Yeah.
feeling like I'm behind all the time, ain't none of this going to work. Like it's better to be
No.
successful at a tiny thing. I mean, look at me. Today I did not have time to do an hour-long workout. I decided to go to the gym. I was there for 7 minutes, and but it gave me a win and some momentum. That was better than just like
Yep.
failing at getting there for an hour every day.
Yes.
So I want to go back to something really important you said, um, around, okay, I set these like deep work blocks, or like in our system,
Mhm.
it's set one deep work block for the week. And then it comes around to that day and that time. You're like, there's like a million emails. I finally have. This is what happens for me. Ooh, I finally have a block to get all these emails done. you
Yep.
know, it's like I can totally disobey my rule because that's my one chance to get caught up on chores. But one thing that's worked well for your personality type and mine is, okay, how do we build defense against ourselves? And so, um,
Mm.
having that time set with another person usually works because there's some
Yes.
amount of I don't want to let them down, or I'm more excited to show up and do something with another person. So you're shaking your
Yes.
head. I'm assuming this has worked for you too.
It has worked for me. So now what's interesting is I shared an example earlier where I had this accountability partner and I wasn't getting anything done.
hmm
To be honest, I was a little frustrated with that accountability partner because I didn't feel like she really understood really what I needed.
Mm,
So that's one thing. But I will say, okay, I've worked with a couple of different courses, even in with Greenhouse, right? And you start building relationship, and I feel seen, I feel known. Like I'm just very relational, Steve, and I'm a little bit of a people pleaser, and I can either make that work to my advantage or call it bad, you
yeah.
know. And there have been times that I've signed up for like our courses and our group coaching, and I hadn't fully gotten through that entire worksheet. And I just did not want to show up and not have it done.
Yeah.
I just didn't.
Right.
I wanted to have a quality conversation. I wanted to contribute, right? So I agree with you. Like for us, for sure, us ENFPs, that social accountability is super powerful. It's why I go to gyms that are social.
Yeah.
I used to be an Orange Theory member. Now I go to Regimen, but they're all built around that social component, right? So I'm not just getting up to work out. I'm getting up to encourage somebody. I'm
Yeah.
getting up to build a relationship. I'm getting up to get encouraged. It's multifaceted.
I love that phrase. I just wrote it down. Social accountability.
Yeah.
You need to TM that. That's good. I
Ooh.
she's like, oh, I'm going online right now. No, I agree. And I think for me, if I step back, honestly, when you strip it all down, part of it is just it's more fun. I mean, to someone like me, it is more fun to do it
Yeah.
with someone else. So I'm more likely to show up versus with myself. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, this is a good chance to get email caught up on, you know?
The email part is important, right? And one of the reasons we do that is because I there are times, Steve, honestly, I will do an email in an open block that I've set up for something else because I'm not going to be able to give my mental resources to that thing that block is meant for if I've got all this background noise
hmm Yeah.
that I just need to silence. So I understand that part of it too, but back to the social accountability, I think that's where
Yeah.
we were at, right?
It's a good mention though that that's kind of plays into your awareness of self. Like, okay, right now I have this thing planned, but I'm not going to be effective. if I've got all this noise. So let me go take care of some of that first, and then maybe I can get back to this. It makes me think of how often the deep work or the important stuff is like has a lot of thinking components to it, whether it's strategic or creative.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thinking work to do, which kind of takes time to really get in the mode, get into the flow.
Mm-hmm. Learning, typically, you got to learn it before you do it with a lot of the big, at least for me right now, as I'm moving forward in my career, I'm having to, look at different ways to, retool my skill set, so to speak. And so I've got to learn certain things, maybe get, looking at different certifications. I've got to put a resume together that uses a completely different set of vocabulary, and it takes time to go online and learn what is the right vocabulary for that position. Yeah. And so, like the big things typically are those items that require a lot of us.
I'm curious if there's something for you in that too. For me, I've been learning more and more that physical movement helps me. So going on a walk, if I have something like that, like a task like that to do, I will, as much as I can, even if it needs to be pacing around a room, I will go for a walk to kind of like think about where I need to start with all this and what my goal is during this next couple hours, and then get into the work. And that works like clockwork for me. But if I'm just staring at the screen and I've been doing stuff and then I switch over and try to do that, I keep getting distracted. I'm stuck. I can't get over that hump.
Yes, I would agree with you. The energy movement physically is helpful. What's really, honestly, lately, like the newest thing that I got that's really been helping me is one of these I have a standing desk, but I have one of these standing desk pads that has a curve in it.
Uh-huh.
So you're shifting your weight like you're walking, almost like.
Yes.
That has been very helpful. Just to your point of like the physical movement, kind of moving the brain juices. That's been something I've been using a lot the last couple of weeks. That's helped.
Well, that's cool. Oh man, we could go forever, but what is kind of next for you in terms of all this stuff? Is there something that you've been trying to do lately, or that you have kind of on the docket for this week?
In terms of?
Just in terms of your
planning?
Approach to, kind of the planning and focus.
Yeah, it's interesting. I started doing some work this week, so now my time management is looking a little bit different, and that's great, right? The last several months I've not been employed, and so that's been, that's actually been counterproductive to getting things done. Mm-hmm. When I have more to do, I actually can get more done because, again, you get the momentum going. So, between the job that I have now, which is taking a certain number of hours, and the side projects that are really important to me. A lot of these one things are like my stuff, like continue my study in a particular realm or something else I'm interested in getting involved in. I'm having to take a look at how I'm going to block that. One of the conversations I really do want to have with my new employer, when it's right, we'll see, is, what about this 4-day work week, right? What about 10 hours? Because again, I can hyper focus. I do pretty well once I'm in that space. I can hyper focus. Mm-hmm. If I worked, 4 days a week and then I had a whole full day, because again, I want the spaciousness to have to rev up into, what it is that I need to do, and be able to work with my energy and when it's available, or go create it if it's not. That works better for me when I have a long chunk of time versus, 1 or 2 hours at the end of the workday when I'm usually toast anyway. So to have to shift gears takes energy, right? Like, okay, I've been doing this all day, and now I'm going to go, study for my, my functional health stuff. That is a complete different shift. So that's going to take a whole nother warm-up phase, before I can, kind of get into it. So I'm hoping that that's something that I can look at, with my employers, having a discussion on this 4-day work week, so that I can maintain that level of focus on the job that I'm, have taken, but then also give myself all the spaciousness I need for to be successful with these other things that I'm pursuing.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's a good place to end. I do think that is it almost tees up a whole other topic, which is a good one right now, for companies and for people to give thought and intention to in their jobs. That, the whole idea of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, it's like that stuff was built for a factory system anyway, where everything was very predefined, repeat the tasks. And I just feel like for years now, we have needed a shift in how it's set up. And it's almost, to me, one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is it like almost forced us to ask the question of, oh, should this setup be a little different? Because I don't think that flexibility thing is a new thing. I think this has been needed for knowledge work for decades now, where knowledge work requires all the things you just described. And if you can have less work time in a flow state, in a more kind of focused way, you could get way more done than going from meeting to meeting every 30 minutes for 50 hours a week. But I realize, of course, I run a company. I get it. Like, it's hard too. You have to actually have shared times where you're all working. You can't just all do your own thing forever and ever. But I think there's more give and take than we've given in the past.
It's negotiable, right? I mean, I think we are definitely moving toward an outcome-based, relationship with work. I see it more. And gosh, if I can get the outcomes that you're asking of me in 4 days instead of 5, is it really about the 40 hours or is it about the outcome? I can get this outcome in 40 hours.
Yeah.
And if I can do it in 4 days, hot diggity dog, because a lot of people are doing side hustles, right? A lot of people got the side gigs going on. So, finding ways to win at both.
Yeah.
Why can't we win at both?
Yeah. Well, that's good. Thanks for giving us our next topic, Tina. Appreciate it. It's really why you came on, right?
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining this conversation, sharing your thoughts and what's worked for you. And I think this is one of those topics, sounds boring on paper, but you get into it, it's actually really interesting. So for anyone listening, if you're inspired with this, you can also hop into the community or get coaching around this stuff at greenhousecoaching.co. And Tina, if we're in Austin, Texas, and want to go to South by Southwest, you're hosting, right?
Okay, come on. I got an extra room.
Okay.